I want to refute the argument that nuclear power is a solution to anything that we have today. Forget about CO2, the climate. Nuclear power is a problem and it needs to be erased from the face of this earth if we can. Of course, we can't do that, but at least, please, let's not use it as some sort of argument against innovation and progress in decarbonizing the energy infrastructure. In other words, to say that, oh, instead of using windmills and solar, why don't we use nuclear power? That's stupid. It's counterproductive, and it's probably also very political. So this is a reaction podcast. I've had it. I don't understand why intelligent people, smart people, educated people fall in this trap of sunk cost and the fact that just because we have something doesn't mean we have to keep it. And they absolutely neglect the fact that nuclear power is a terrible, terrible solution. Here's a simple reason why. Find one private insurer that is going to insure a nuclear power plant. The answer is zilch. Nobody's going to do it. In other words, nuclear power is a social construct. It's a government-sponsored solution. And if people don't want it, then we shouldn't have it. Because it is a government-sponsored solution. It is not something where, oh, well, the market, because you can have cheaper power and people who are against nuclear power against the market. No, 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 no. People who are against nuclear power, including me, are people, or a lot of us, are actually very, very market-driven. And if you can't give me an insurance against something, then it should not exist. This is not even on podcast. It's July 20th, 2022. This is Telco. For the day, the fund's up 1%. The market's up 75 basis points. For the year, we are down 38.2%. The market is down 15%. We're underperforming by 23.5%. This is a reaction podcast to several interviews and articles and conversations and all that kind of stuff that I've had and listened and read in the past couple of months. And here, I want to lay out the problem and then my reaction. So the problem is, look, we have a reason to decarbonize the energy infrastructure. In my view, there's three reasons why we should do that. Number one, we want to do something for the climate. Number two, we want to get rid of Russia as a part of the global economy, at least in the context of Vladimir Putin. In other words, we need to de-Russianize the economy, and de-Russianizing means decarbonizing. And third, we want to also continuously innovate, even if we have good solutions. Even if, let's say, we have oil, we have gas, we have nuclear power. Why not innovate? Well, what's wrong with innovation? So those are the three reasons. And the reason it's good to innovate is simply because I think we here at Orange Capital Partners, we're very Popperian when it comes to understanding how the world evolves, and the world evolves in try and error and constant error correction. And therefore, even if you have something, you can still keep trying. So now let's get to the point of the climate conversation. The climate conversation is that we are burning fossil fuels and therefore emitting too much CO2 into the atmosphere, and that's creating climate problems. Now, I personally think that's a bad problem in the sense that having a climate problem is not a clear-cut problem. We don't know what it actually means. However, decarbonizing the energy infrastructure is a very clear-cut problem. It just means that let's use other technologies that don't use carbon, and end of story. Again, I think there's three good reasons why we should do that. Number one, I think there is definitely a positive effect to the climate. Number two, we can get rid of Russia. And by the way, it's not just Russia, it's also OPEC and a lot of weird countries that have lots of hydrocarbons, and I think being dependent on countries like that is just not a good thing. And I think third, even if we didn't have the first two reasons, I think constant innovation is always a good thing, competition, and so on and so forth. Now, people are saying the biggest argument against renewable power and before I even go there, let me just say that the current solution to decarbonizing energy is in a nutshell always being considered to be renewable energy. Now, I personally don't have a better solution right now either, but I just want to mention that there's a lot of things we can do to decarbonize energy. For example, we can do research in material science to get better photovoltaic cells. We can do research in material science to maybe get something like gravity storage, or in other words, also research in material science to get better batteries, because one solution to the energy infrastructure problem is to have better storage. Once you can store energy better, we have more options. And I think any solution that increases optionality is always a good solution, at least the way we see it at Orange Capital Partners. So that's why we believe that storage combined with innovation in energy production, such as renewables, but it doesn't have to be the conventional renewables such as wind and solar. It could be, like I said, gravitational storage. Then we can use maybe hydro storage and gravitational storage, combine that, use wind, solve the intermittency problem, so on and so forth. There's a lot of ways we can do renewables, not just windmills and solar. Just one example, which is material science. Just let's invest in material science. Let's focus on the problem of how to arrange atoms in a way that we can decarbonize energy faster and at lower cost. So this is just one thing I wanted to mention before I now go into the current solution, which is renewables. They have some drawbacks, and one of them is that we can't rely on them. And then people say, well, the bad thing is also they're being subsidized. Why are we subsidizing them? Well, here's something I want to tell all you guys who are against renewables because they're subsidized. Nuclear power is even more subsidized than renewables. Nuclear power is subsidized in many ways. First, we tolerate it. It's very dangerous. We still tolerate it. It's a political solution because, like I said, there's no private insurer ready to insure a nuclear power plant, and therefore, by definition, it's a political solution, and therefore it's subsidized. The fossil fuels infrastructure is extremely subsidized. U.S. Army, Marines, all that stuff, being the police around the world, making sure that countries like Kuwait don't get invaded. All of that stuff is subsidy. So in a sense that if we have global infrastructure, internet, energy, transportation, it's always subsidized in one way or the other. So to attack renewables because they're subsidized maybe a little bit more directly than others is not the right way to approach it. It's the wrong argument. It's unfair. It really doesn't make any sense. So let's get back to my point now. Why am I so much against nuclear power? Well, first and foremost, I think nuclear power is a bad technology because we don't have it under control, so we're the sorcerer's apprentice. Second, we don't understand what to do with the waste. And third, we also have a problem of crowding out, which in my view is actually the biggest problem here, which is that because we have this gigantic thing that supposedly produces energy on the cheap, while it's not really on the cheap, again, it's subsidized. But anyway, we have it, and therefore we're crowding out a lot of other innovation. And this is a very philosophical problem, because you could say, look, what's wrong with having a good solution? There are many instances in life where we have good solutions and we stick with them. And yeah, we could have made maybe better solutions, but this solution works. I mean, the highway system in the United States, it's a good solution. There's probably better ways to deal with traffic today. But because we have it, it's there, why not just use it? This is a problem of technical debt. The problem of technical debt in general is that because we innovated and created a certain technology, it creates an infrastructure and that makes it very difficult to replace it. Actually, the hydrocarbon infrastructure is very similar, okay? We found oil in the 1850s or 60s in Pennsylvania, and from then on, it just became a big bonanza, and today the whole world is hydrocarbon driven, and therefore it's very difficult to replace it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. In fact, we should, I think, and this is something that I've learned from the Google people, they at least tried that with Google X and things like that, where they said, look, just because we have something doesn't mean it's a good solution. How about we pretend we don't have it and then try to innovate? Now, they haven't been very successful with that, but the point is still, just because we have nuclear power and we know how to do it, it doesn't mean it's a good solution, and we shouldn't use it because it's not cheap. If we fully price it, then we will have very quickly returns on investment on other innovations. And this is already the solution to my episode here, which is, look, instead of having a conversation about how to decarbonize energy and so on and so forth, why don't we try to be transparent? Why don't we try to fully price in the cost of the technologies that we have today? Because if we could do that, if we did that and could do it, and we can, then we could have a faster Popperian error correction. In other words, we could have more innovation faster and therefore find alternatives. And this is what it's all about. It's really, in my view, the biggest innovation that humanity has come up with is not technology. It is this ability to replace existing status quo or existing political systems, existing economic systems with better solutions. This is what Popper is. This is what democracy is. This is what markets are. Popper has said that in a lot more eloquently than me. But the point here is that we are very often being sort of drawn back by these opponents. In a sense, let's say these nuclear pro-nuclear people, they're trying to stop innovation. They're trying to somehow keep the status quo. Well, we have it already. Why do we need something new? Well, you know why we need something new? Because number one, it's a bad solution, this nuclear thing. Number two, maybe we come up with much better things. And number three, even if nuclear was a good solution, are we just going to stop doing research and development now just because we have nuclear? Certainly not. So my point again is that we need to price things properly. If we put the right price on things, then the innovation will come automatically. And before we put the right price on things, of course, we also have pricing is a social construct. The price of, what's the price of air? What's the price of love? What's the price of violence? What's the price of gun freedom in the United States? All these things have prices, and for some people it's a lot, for some people it's not a lot. So that's a political process. Now, I don't have a solution right now how to price nuclear power, but what I can say is the following. We could just simply take private insurance companies and have them quote on insuring nuclear power plants. And they probably would come up with some sort of quote, and then have them, trade their bonds and equities in the financial market. If we see the right price, we would see what the crowd, the wisdom of the crowd thinks in terms of what the price should be to insure a power plant, and that's the real price. And once we know that price, which I am sure will be astronomically high, then it will be much easier to do research and development, let's say in material science, to come up with better batteries and better photovoltaic cells. And this is what we really need. And why do we need that? It's not just because we might have a better energy infrastructure solution for the future, but it's also we would have a cadre of researchers and grad students who think about this and who will be involved in this. And this is valuable for the whole society. So to summarize, once and for all, here at Orange Capital Partners, we are making the statement that nuclear power is a bad solution for the decarbonization problem of the world. We need to get away from it. The way we get away from it is by pricing it properly, because if we had a market-driven insurance policy on nuclear power plants, we would see how expensive they are, and therefore we would enable innovation in other areas such as material science and renewable energies, and solve the intermittency problem, decarbonize energy, and also create a cadre of new academics who would then generate knowledge and innovation for the future technologies that we don't even know about today. Thank you.